difficult to think of any mainstream car in 2014 that's got a bigger fight on its hands than the new Ford Mondeo. We first saw this thing almost 3 years ago at the Detroit Motor Show, where it was unveiled as the new US market's Ford Fusion. It's being attacked on the left by the German premium brands, the Audi A4s, the BMW 3 Series, and from the right by the new trendy SUV crossovers you can get for about £20,000. This thing has massively got its work cut out. No pressure then.
The new Mondeo has been on sale in the US badged as a Fusion for about 2.5 years now, but production delays while Ford closed a factory in Belgium due to the global recession have held the car back from European buyers. Ford says that doesn't matter because in the intervening time they've made sure there's loads of new tech on board that's bang up to date. So let's have a look at it.
You can kit the new Mondeo out with all sorts of new safety systems. There's adaptive cruise, there's pedestrian detection, and automatic city braking. Hopefully I won't be demonstrating any of that today, but what I can show you around is this new cabin, because goodness gracious me, is this more plush than the old car. Instead of just throwing loads of gloss black plastic and chrome at it, which really didn't serve that well in the old car, this has got much plusher new materials and a more friendly design. Especially like the instruments. They've got a TFT screen in the middle of the physical dials, and you can control just about every function, sat nav, your media, safety systems, all via these buttons on the steering wheel. Another interesting point is this centre console here. Now you get the touchscreen, which Ford call their sync system, on every Mondeo, but you need the top spec titanium one for sat nav. What's interesting is lower down here, all these physical buttons are new for the European Mondeo. The US spec Fusion had a big one-piece plastic panel with touch sensitive areas, which you had to look directly at in order to operate. It was really hard to sort of touch type on. Ford has said that due to customer feedback, they've changed that for Europe, i.e. Europe gets the better car because the Americans had to put up with a rubbish design. There's one more safety gadget that's worth showing you as well, but for that, we've got to get in the back. Normally, I really wouldn't bother showing you the seatbelt in the back of a car, but in the Mondeo, it is worth showing you because it's very, very heavy duty. And the reason for that is, in this seatbelt, there is actually an airbag. It expands to 5 times this belt's normal size if the car senses an impact, and helps spread the load of the deceleration as you're thrown forward to try and stop you getting winded or cracked ribs. Now, given that it's mostly children that's going to be riding back here, we really, really like that idea. I think it's great. But surely the best safety system in a Mondeo should be an agile, responsive chassis to get you out of trouble in the first place. Let's go for a drive and find out.
So let's talk about the engines, because as usual with the Mondeo there are loads. Not quite at the moment, it must be said. Next year all the interesting ones come actually. In 2015 there's going to be a 1 litre 3-cylinder EcoBoost with 125 horsepower, that's a petrol. And then there's also going to be a high performance petrol, reckoned on about 240 horsepower, though unfortunately it's not the engine out of the Ford Focus ST, and neither will this be badged as a Mondeo ST. Right now, you've got a choice of a petrol-electric hybrid, which feels quite Lexus-like, and that's not particularly a compliment. Think lots of droning CVT noise, not a huge amount of response, and not a lot of fuel economy either. There's also a 1.5 litre 4-cylinder petrol with 160 horsepower, and that's really good actually. It sounds almost VTEC-y in the way it revs out, really linear, good throttle response, not that much low-down torque, but if you're not doing a huge amount of miles, that might be a sort of under-the-radar choice. But of course, this is a Mondeo, it's a fleet favourite. You're going to be doing loads of miles in this thing, which means you're probably going to end up in one of the diesels. The pick is likely to be, in the end, the 1.6 litre diesel with the better fuel economy numbers that comes next year. But for now, we're in the one of choice. It's a 2 litre, 180 horsepower diesel. Doesn't quite feel that powerful, it must be said. This is quite a big car, but it doesn't really feel 180 horses worth of punch. But it is very, very well suppressed. Mercedes C220, BMW 320d, they could learn a little bit from this car in terms of how to repress a 4-cylinder diesel's engine noise. So I hope I'm building a picture that the new Mondeo is a much more refined, mature, really well-sorted cruiser kind of car. But you're thinking, come on, it's a Ford, what about the handling? Not so sure about that. The ride's so comfortable, but there's not a huge amount of adjustability in the chassis. Okay, that's maybe a minute point, but it's nice to know it's there almost. The main problem though is here, is the steering. It's very, very light, very over-assisted. I was chatting to one of the chief engineers on the car last night, and he said, no, the steering's fine. It's been completely engineered from the US market. This isn't some soccer mum's car. It's not the sort of car where you're supposed to hook one finger into the wheel and then just toot along and not really notice you're driving it. but I do want to drive it. I do want to be able to point this thing along like really good mainstream Fords have been entertaining us for the past decade or so. And the Mondeo never really adds a layer of response to its steering. It's quite remote, it's got that glassiness when you turn into a corner, and there's no added weight depending on whether you're parking really, or if you're actually piling in carrying quite a lot of speed. Now, for a car of this class, it's not a deal breaker, and for any other car, we probably wouldn't be picking fault with it too much. But given this is a Mondeo, it's got the blue oval of Ford on its nose, we expect the very best when it comes to the chassis, and this just isn't the best in the class anymore. That goes to the Mazda 6. So if the Mondeo's a more handsome, more spacious and much more refined car, but has slightly lost its sense of humour, that means it's aiming dead on for a rival that's being launched almost as I speak. A few hundred miles away from here, people are getting their first go in the new Volkswagen Passat, which is just like the Mondeo, techier and more refined and even more clever than before. We're going to have to get those cars together on the road in the UK to bring you the definitive verdicts on which wins the battle of the new Repmobiles. So stay tuned to Auto Express magazine to find out who wins that one.
So, has the Mondeo won its fight? Is it a better car than the old one? Well, it is better looking, cleaner, greener and more efficient. It's roomier, more practical, much better built, but it isn't as fun to drive as the old car. It's no longer the better driver in the class, and that means that a really big reason that you'd have bought a Mondeo has now gone. On balance, that trade-off is just about worth it. This is a rather good car, and it is worthy of a new generation of Mondeo men.
Click on the video windows for our video verdict of the newly revised version of Ford's best-selling Focus, and check out how Ford is keeping the fun factor in its range in our video drive of the new turbocharged Mustang. Hit the play icon for our latest video, and subscribe for more videos by clicking the Auto Express logo.